Yes? Nobody? We trust ma'am, right?
2016 only, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. All right. So we are doing the CARO 2016, which is applicable for your examination. And as I told you, CARO 2020 has already been released, but it is still not applicable as the MCA has postponed the applicability of CARO 2020 to April 2022. Okay. Therefore, what we are going to study in our examination and for the examination perspective is going to be CARO 2016. Okay. Now, I already told you yesterday that CARO is nothing but an extra additional reporting to be done in the case of companies apart from the main audit report. Okay. So this order was released by MCA on 29th of March 2016. Okay. And on this day, this CARO became applicable. And before that, we had CARO 2015, which now has been overwritten. Okay. So now what is applicable is only CARO 2016 as of now. Okay. Tomorrow in 2020 comes into picture, 2016 will be scrapped. Okay. So what is this is nothing but it is additional reporting required in the case of companies. What happens is we say that companies need to have more of transparency, more of communicative information to the public at large, and therefore you require some more additional reporting on certain matters which are specified where in the CARO. Okay. So MCA, when they release the order, that is companies auditors report order, this order is having 16 clauses, 16 different parameters where we are going to report separately. Okay. Like to give you an example, we have something which talks about fixed assets, which talks about inventory, which talks about statutory dues like income tax, GST, etc., which we need to pay. Okay. Then we have some kind of, if you have given loans, guarantees, etc. Okay. Then how are we to tell that we have done everything correctly? So this is something that we need to report on whether the company is following its protocols or company is doing what is required properly or not. And if they're not doing it properly, what is the reason? Okay. So all of that will be reported in the CARO 2016. All right. Now, yesterday we did the applicability. Okay. You remember the applicability? To whom CARO is applicable? Okay. So CARO is applicable to every company, including foreign company. Okay. But it shall not be applicable to insurance, banking, one person and small company, Section 8 companies, okay, and private companies with the respective turnover, paid up capital limits which are given to you. Okay, so borrowings, paid up capital and reserves, and turnover, that is revenue. These three things have been given to you for the checking the threshold. But the best part about the threshold is these all three are cumulative. All three has to be fulfilled. Only then CARO does not become applicable to you. If any one of the limit you cross, CARO will be applicable to you. Okay. So first we'll start understanding the clarity of all these words. Like when you say paid up capital, what do you mean? When you say reserves, which all reserves have to be included for calculation? When I say turnover, what all should be included as a part of calculation? Why is this important? Because in the examination, sometimes you have a question regarding applicability of CARO in a particular scenario. Okay, everybody. So all of you, please come to your textbooks. Okay, and also keep your notebook open along with it. Okay, this thing we won't be writing. This is just a clarification which I want you to study from the textbook itself. Okay, so all of you please come. No, you don't have it, no? But this is same like that of the CARO 2020. Okay, so what you do is just come to the applicability of CARO 2020. Okay, everybody. Now, they have given you on the right box clarification while computing limits with respect to private limited companies. Okay. Now, in private limited company, if you look at the first thing, they are telling you that a private limited company, not being a subsidiary or a holding company of a public company, having paid up capital and reserves and surplus not more than rupees 1 crore. Okay. So for reserves and surplus, you have to come to the fourth and fifth one. Okay. So fourth and fifth clarification talks about capital and reserves and surplus. Okay. So when you look at reserves and surplus, look at which all reserve and surplus you take into consideration for computation. Okay. As per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013, reserves and surplus consist of capital reserve, CRR, SPR, DRR, revaluation reserve, Shares option outstanding account, other reserves, surplus. That is balance in the statement of P&L. Okay. Debit balance in the statement of P&L shall be shown as a negative figure under the head surplus. So all of these things will be taken into consideration for calculation. So the entire reserves and surplus, you are not going to skip any of the reserves. Okay. If some new type of reserve comes, you'll write it where? In the other reserves. Okay. So you know what is a capital reserve, you know what is CRR, you know what is SPR, you know what is DRR, you know what is revaluation reserve, shares option outstanding account, you must have studied in the part of accountancy. Okay. ESOP kind of thing, outstanding balances. Okay. Then other reserves, surplus. Surplus is nothing but P&L account credit balance. And if the P&L is having a debit balance, you will show it as a negative figure. Okay, but you'll not take it on the asset side. You'll take it where? Reserves and surplus in negatives. Logic understandable, everybody? So all of that will be taken into consideration for calculation of reserves. Okay, next. For determining the applicability of order to a private limited company, both capital as well as revenue reserves would be taken into consideration while computing the limit of rupees 1 crore prescribed for paid up capital and reserves and surplus. Logic understandable? That means usually what happens, whenever we calculate reserves, we take only the free reserves. Okay, but this is one of those areas where reserves are all B capital, B revenue. All the reserves are taken into consideration. That means the entire reserves and surplus of the company will be taken into consideration for calculation purpose. Okay, and paid up capital, obviously, it means both equity as well as preference, paid up capital. Logic understandable, everybody? Okay, yes. Then come to the next part. 1 crore as of the balance sheet date, and which does not have a total borrowing exceeding rupees 1 crore from any bank or financial institution at any point of time. So what do you mean by borrowing? Borrowing could be anything. Long-term borrowing, short-term borrowing, cash credit, working capital borrowings, anything. Everything will be considered as what? Borrowing. Okay. So be current liability or non-current liability. Every kind of borrowing will be taken into consideration for the calculation of applicability. The 1 crore limit. Okay. So come to the clarification. The first three, okay. Loan from banks and financial institutions are normally in the form of term loans, demand loans, working capital limits, cash credits, overdraft facilities, bill purchased or discounted. Outstanding balances of such loans should be considered as loan outstanding for the purpose of computing the limit of rupees 1 crore. Got it? That means be it short-term loan, be long-term, be cash credit, be overdraft, be working capital, does not matter. Is this a borrowing? Yes, you will take into consideration. Even if it is 15 days borrowing, it will be taken into consideration for calculation. Even if it is short-term, 3 months, 6 months, you will take into consideration. Logic understandable, everybody? Next. It is clarified that since the words used by the order are any bank or financial institutions, the limit exceeding 1 crore applies in aggregate to all the loans taken together. That means not one banker should have a loan of 1 crore or more. No. All the loans together should not exceed 1 crore. That means suppose working capital is 20 lakhs. Term loan is 25 lakhs. Okay, so you'll add up all of this. And after adding, if it is crossing 1 crore, then this will become applicable. Okay, they're not saying individual should be 1 crore and above. No. Aggregate together should be 1 crore and above. Is the logic understandable, everybody? Okay, last. And which does not have a total revenue as disclosed in Schedule 3 to the Companies Act 2013 exceeding rupees 10 crore. Okay. Now first you listen to me, then we can have a reading of it. Now when you prepare the statement of P&L as per Schedule 3, the first part you write revenue. So the under that you'll write revenue from operations. That is sales and everything. The main revenue from operations. Then you will have what? Other revenues. And then you will have total revenue. You'll add up both of them. So here we are not talking about revenue from operations. We're talking about what? Total revenue. That means revenue from operations plus other revenue taken together. It could be from revenue from discontinuing operations also. When you have discontinuing operations, that means operations which you discontinue for the year. Okay, which is stopped by you. Okay, we have a different concept for it when you come to financial study. There's something called as discontinuing operations. Okay, so which you stop. So from there also you have certain revenue coming in. So that also you'll take up. Total revenue has to be taken, not only sales. Are they using the word turnover? No. They're using the word revenue. Revenue means what? Revenue from operations, other revenue, including revenue from discontinuing operations. Everything that you take as a part of total revenue will be included for the purpose of calculating Caro applicability. Is the logic understandable? Okay. So all of you come down. They've written there. Total revenue as disclosed in Schedule 3. So total revenue. It is not revenue from operations. If revenue from operations were told, you would have taken only sales. Clear, everybody? Okay, next. Including revenue from discontinuing operations exceeding rupees 10 crore during the financial year as per the financial statements. Is the logic clear, everybody? So private company, very important for you to understand that they could give you a question regarding calculation of applicability, wherein you need to remember the clarification carefully and then add up everything properly and then tell whether it is applicable or not. Is the logic clear, everybody? Okay, yes. Now all of you, please come to your notebooks. We are now going to study the content of Caro. Okay, everyone? Okay. So let's continue. First, write one point there as a note. After you finish writing the applicability yesterday, just come down and write a note. Every report made by the auditor, under section 143, we will study 143 in company audit, okay? So that I will teach you in detail what is section 143, okay? Every report made by the auditor under section 143 of the Companies Act 2013 shall in addition, every report made by the auditor under section 143 of the Companies Act 2013 shall in addition contain the matters specified in paragraph 3 and 4, as may be applicable. Okay. Now, one more important thing you should remember is Caro will never be applicable to consolidated financial statements. Caro is applicable only to what? Standalone financial statements, not on the CFS. Okay. So write the next point. Caro shall not apply to consolidated financial statements. I will first give you all the 16 clauses one after the other, and then we'll start doing the discussion of every clause in detail. Okay, so start writing under that. Matters to be specified in Caro. Matters to be specified in Caro 2016. Okay, italic 1. So like that, you have up to italic 16. Okay, so as I say, next one, go on making the italics. It will go up to 16. Okay, so italic 1, fixed assets. So you have to report separately about fixed assets. Okay, italic 2, inventory. Italic 3, loan given by the company. Loan given by the company. Next, loan to directors. Loan to directors and investment by the company. And investment by the company. Next, deposits. Cost records. Next.
Ma'am, is it deposits and cost records or deposits after cost record?
No, first is deposits and the next clause is cost records. Okay, so first is deposit, the next clause will be cost records. Okay, then statutory dues. Statutory dues. Repayment of loan. Repayment of loan. Next, utilization of funds. Utilization of funds. Reporting of fraud. Next, approval of managerial remuneration. Approval of managerial remuneration. Approval of managerial remuneration. Nidhi company, next one, Nidhi company. Related party transactions. Next, private placement for preferential issue. Private placement of preferential issues. Non-cash transaction. Non-cash transaction. And last, correct, 16, right? Last is registration under RBI Act. Registration under RBI Act. Okay, so these are all the 16 clauses which you are going to report in Caro. Okay, so what are you going to report in the 16 is nothing but you have to give some more clarification, some more understanding of these items in the financial statements. Okay, like for example, the first clause talks about fixed assets. So you have to give some additional importance or additional disclosure regarding fixed assets. Then inventory, something extra about inventory. And what is that extra also will be given where? In the order only. Okay, so what you need to report extra about it is also given where? In the order. Okay, you cannot write what you want. The order has clearly told you what are the extra information that we require. And those information you have to write. Simple, everybody? Are you understanding the concept behind Caro? Okay, so let's start doing one by one. Go to the first one and write fixed assets. So what will be the additional reporting that you will do on fixed assets? Okay, so first clause, fixed assets. Branch into 3 parts. The first reporting that you will do is whether the company is maintaining proper records of the fixed assets, quantity wise and situation wise. Situation means what? Where it is located. So how many and where are they maintaining proper records? Logic understandable? So write in the first branch, whether company maintains proper records showing full particulars, including details of quantity, and situation of fixed assets. Details of quantity and situation of the fixed assets. Underline the word quantity and situation. Okay, now, second thing that you will report in fixed asset is, we know who will do the physical verification. Who does it? Management, correct? So you need to ensure that management has done physical verification of the fixed assets at regular intervals. Clear, everybody? At regular intervals, the management is undertaking what? Physical verification of fixed assets. Okay, so write the next branch. Whether physical verification of fixed assets is conducted by the management, at reasonable intervals. At reasonable intervals. Till you are clear, everybody? Now, third thing and the last thing that you will report in fixed assets is that, suppose while doing physical verification, some material discrepancies were noticed. Material discrepancies, problems, shortage, or something like that. Discrepancy is noted. How did the management account for it? How did the management account for it? For example, it could be possible that there is some theft happened in the organization. So there will be now a shortage of inventory, shortage of asset. So how did you account for it? How did you bring that in the books of accounts? That has to be proper, right? See, because if you discard a particular fixed asset, or maybe it is lost by theft, it is not a mistake done by the management, right? But you need to account for it correctly. That is the responsibility of the management. Logic understandable? Therefore, if suppose during physical verification, if any material discrepancies have been encountered, then how did the management account for it? That will be the third thing that you'll report where? In the CARO. Clear, everybody? So what are the first one? All the particulars, including quantity and situation of fixed assets. Second, whether physical verification has been conducted on regular intervals. Third, if during physical verification, any material discrepancies were noticed, how did the management account for it? Okay, everybody? So write the third one. If any material discrepancies, were noticed on physical verification, whether it has been accounted for, in the books of accounts.
Ma'am, can you repeat accounted for?
In the books of accounts. In books of accounts. Any doubt till here? Nobody? Okay. So the first clause we have completed, that is fixed assets.
Ma'am, even depreciation will come in the third point.
Third point, discrepancies, if it comes, yeah, accounting records, yes. It will definitely come, yes. Okay. Next. So what is the next one? Inventory. Okay. Inventory, only 2 points. Very simple. Whether the management conducted physical verification of inventory on regular intervals. Second, if any material discrepancies were noticed, how did the management account for it? Logic easy? Second and third point only of fixed assets. Okay, so come on, write the clause 2 inventory. For inventory, branch into two parts. First part, whether management has conducted inventory is not fixed assets. Aditya, inventory is current asset. Yeah? Yeah. Fixed assets, land, building, plant, machinery, goodwill, intangibles. These are called fixed assets. Inventory is current asset, okay? It is rotational, no? So we don't call it to be a fixed asset, okay? All right. So, right, branch into two parts. First part, whether physical verification of inventory has been conducted at reasonable intervals. No problem, Aditya, it happens, okay? Sometimes you get confused. Whether physical verification of the inventory has been conducted at reasonable intervals by the management. Second branch, if any material discrepancies have been noticed, if any material discrepancies have been noticed, then whether it has been accounted in the books of accounts, then whether it has been accounted in the books of accounts. Is the logic clear, everybody? So was inventory easy? Okay. Can you tell me what is the third one? Okay. Loan given by the company. So write the third one, loan given by the company. Okay. Now, these loans given by the company are basically loan given by the company to related parties. Okay. These are the loans given by the company to whom? Related parties. Like you could say they are connected to the company. Okay. Now, in that case, what will you as the auditor report? First thing, the terms of the loan should not be prejudicial to the interest of the company. The terms of the loan should not be prejudicial to the interest of the company. They should not be harmful to the company. Because related parties to give money, we will have any terms and conditions which could be unfavorable for the company. Correct? Therefore, first thing what you'll see is whether terms of these loans are not prejudicial to the interest of the company. Second, is the repayment happening on regular basis or not? It's a loan, right? So repayment has to happen. So is the repayment happening on regular basis or not? And suppose if no repayment is happening, then see whether they're outstanding for a period of more than 90 days. Up to 90 days, we don't report about it. But if suppose they're outstanding for more than 90 days, there is no repayment happening from them, then that reporting will come where? In the CARO. That means understand there is some kind of movement of the fund happening without reason. Because if it is a loan, people will give back the loan money on installment basis. Correct?
Ma'am, repayment in the sense interest, ma'am.
Yes, interest and principal. Okay, you have to, when you take a loan, you always repay back in installments. And installments always comprise of what? Principal plus a part of interest. Correct? So that has to be repaid. And if they're not repaying back, you wait for a period of how many days? 90 days. If continuously 90 days repayment is 0, then you're going to report where? In CARO. Is the logic understandable? Okay, so please write loan given by the company. Okay, under that first you write whether the company has granted any whether the company has granted any loans, secured or unsecured, secured or unsecured, to companies, comma firm, company, comma firms, comma LLPs, or other parties maintained in the register, under section 189. This register under section 189, underline, put an arrow down, that is related parties. That is related parties. Okay, come down right in the next line. If it has granted such loans, if the company has granted such loans, then check the following. Then check the following. Branch into 3 parts. First one, what did I say? The terms of loan should not be prejudicial to the interest of the company. Okay. So first branch, the terms of such loans, are not prejudicial. The terms of such loans are not prejudicial to the company's interest. Are not prejudicial to the company's interest. Next, now you should see that they are repaying on regular basis. Correct? So second branch, whether repayment and its receipts are proper. Whether the repayment and its receipts are proper. Then what are we going to report if its outstanding balance for more than
90 days?
90 days, we have to report about it. Okay. So right, to report with loans, repayment outstanding, to report with the loans, repayment outstanding for more than 90 days, and what is the recovery position? Easy, everybody? Okay. Okay, the thing is, virtually you have two things, repayment and receipt. Repayment is a schedule that you prepare. How much every month you have to repay. So that also has to be genuine, right? Suppose suddenly I tell you 5 lakh in 1 month, then 1 lakh in the next month. This repayment schedule is not correct. So first repayment is schedule of repayment. Second is the actual money coming back. So one is the repayment schedule, other is the actual money coming in. So repayment and receipts, both should be proper. Receipt means what? Money actually coming in. Okay, according to the repayment schedule. So schedule also should be correct. Money also should come accordingly. Okay, that's called as repayment and receipt. Okay, yes. Next. So done with this, everybody? So what was the first clause? Fixed assets. What is the second clause? Inventory. What is the third clause? Loans given by the company. Correct, everybody? Now, come on, write the fourth one. Loan to directors. Loan to directors. And investments by the company. Okay, now understand this properly. Whenever you give loans to directors, okay, or you make investments, there is a provision or section which is called as section 185 and 186 of the Companies Act 2013. What are these? You are going to study when you come to finance. Okay, these are loans given to directors, and there are certain provisions that you have to fulfill. But I'll give you a little part of it. You require the approval from the board of directors. Then you also have to pass a special resolution in the general meeting. So there are certain protocols or provisions that you have to comply with before you give such kind of loans. Correct? So the auditor, what he will check, whether the company has complied with all the provisions of section 185 and 186 while giving such loan to directors and making investments. Easy, everybody? Okay. What are these sections? It's there in your material. Go through it, but they will not question you on that. Okay. Reason being, this is something that you study in the finals when you study everything about directors. Okay. But as always, I tell you, one reading of everything is a must. You never know when what is questioned. So we need to not skip anything. Okay. So all of you, please write the next one. Clause 4. Loans to directors and investments by the company. Under that, whether loans and guarantees, given to the directors are in accordance with the provisions of section 185 and 186 of the Companies Act 2013. Okay, full stop. Continue writing. If not, provide the details thereof. Easy, everybody? Yes. So what is the first clause? Fixed asset. Second, inventory. Third, loan given by the company to related parties. Fourth, loan given to directors and investments by the company. Okay, come on, write the next one, which is deposits. Is everybody with me? Now, in deposits, what you will check? Everybody with me, okay? If first thing you'll see whether company has accepted deposits. The story begins from there. If there are no deposits, this question doesn't come only. So first thing is, look into the balance sheet and understand whether company has accepted deposits from the public. The answer comes yes. Then what will you check? We know section 73 to 76 of the Companies Act 2013 talks about acceptance of deposits. Correct? So you as the auditor has to check whether the provisions of section 73 to 76 have been duly complied with if you're accepting deposits. Correct? Second, you know deposits happen through the RBI guidelines. Correct? So you need to check whether if any notice or order is come by RBI, whether that has been complied with or not. Correct? Third will be what? If something is not followed or not complied with, give the reasons. Easy? So first thing will be what? Did the company accept deposits? Yes. So point number 1, what do you check? Did you comply with the provisions of Companies Act? Second, did you follow the guidelines issued by RBI? Third, if not, give the details. Easy, everybody? Okay, next. So write deposits. Under that, write whether the company has accepted deposits, whether the company has accepted any deposits. First question will be that, okay? Whether the company has accepted any deposits. And if yes, comma, have they followed RBI directions as under? Have they followed RBI directions as under? Branch into three parts. First part, provisions relating to acceptance of deposits. Provisions relating to acceptance of deposits. Provisions relating to acceptance of deposits under section 73 to 76. Under section 73 to 76 of the Companies Act 2013 have been followed. Next, if the order passed by if there is an order passed by court or any tribunal, court or any tribunal like RBI, etc. RBI, NCLT, etc. Last point there, third branch. In case of non-compliance, the nature of the same has to be reported. In case of non-compliance, the nature of the same has to be reported. Okay, everybody. So can we have a quick recap? What are the first one? Fixed assets. Second, inventory. Third, loans given by the company. Fourth, loans given to directors and investments made by the company. Then deposits, correct? Okay, let's do the next one. Now comes to the cost records. You all know section 148 of the Companies Act, where we know that the central government is going to prescribe the cost accounting records which you have to maintain. So what will the auditor do? The auditor will simply see that whether you are covered by the central government's order. And if yes, have you maintained the cost accounting records? If you have not maintained, they will report on it. Simple. So if suppose 148 becomes applicable to you, then you need to prepare what? Cost accounting records. And if you don't prepare, auditor will report on it. Logic understandable? Okay, so write the next one, cost records. Under that, if the central government has prescribed, maintaining cost records, the auditor requires to report, as to whether the same has been maintained or not. Easy, everybody? Okay, then after this comes statutory dues. What are statutory dues? All your taxes. Okay, like your income tax, okay, GST and all of these, which you are liable to pay to the government. And it is by law. So they are statutory dues. Okay, now, first thing you will see that whether the company is paying the statutory dues regularly. Is everybody with me? Is the company paying statutory dues regularly? Second, if they are not paying, is there any due which is outstanding for more than 6 months? Any due which is outstanding for more than 6 months has to be reported separately. Okay, last. Sometimes it so happens that your statutory dues are under dispute. Dispute means what? You say have to pay 10 lakhs, government says 15 lakhs. You say 5 lakhs, they say 25 lakhs. So what we do? Fight. Where? Not on the streets, in the court of law. So you file where? You go to the court and you file an appeal. Okay. So there could be a possibility that there are some disputed dues. So if there are disputed dues, then you have to write the amount involved and also which is the forum where the due is pending. Forum means which court is the due pending or the litigation pending. Logic understandable? Okay. So under statutory dues, first thing you have to tell that whether company is regular in paying or not. Okay, if they're regular, fair enough. Second, is there any due which is outstanding for more than 6 months? Third, if there is any dispute going on with respect to any payment of statutory dues, then you will write about the amount involved and also which forum it is pending. Forum is which court it is pending. That also you have to mention. Is the concept understandable? Okay, so please write the next one.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
Ma'am, amount in the sense, what amount should we write, ma'am? Like, for example, in your example, you said 5 lakhs and 25 lakhs.
R. What is our claim? Okay, because for us that will be relevant. Okay, so our claim. In fact, what happens, you actually will write the entire case only. Okay, it'll be like that. But basically, our importance will be what is our claim there. Okay, yes. So
ma'am,
please,
even contingent liability will come in.
yeah, this is contingent liability only. Yeah. So when it is litigation is pending, it becomes a contingent liability only. Yes. Yeah. All right. So shall we continue? So please write under statutory dues. The auditor shall report whether the company. The auditor shall report whether the company branch into 3 parts. First part, regular in paying statutory dues. Is regular in depositing its statutory dues. Second branch, if not regular, comma, dues outstanding for more than 6 months, dues outstanding for more than 6 months shall be disclosed. Third branch, if any tax has not been deposited, because of dispute, then The amount of dispute and the forum where the litigation is pending, and the forum where the litigation is pending. Pending in the bracket, you can write ongoing. Ongoing. That means it's continuing, no? It's going on. Ongoing, close the bracket, should be disclosed. Easy, everybody? Okay, so what was the first clause? You need to unmute yourself and answer me, okay, all of you. First clause is?
Fixed asset.
Second?
Inventory.
Third?
Loans given by
Loans
company.
given to
by the company.
Loans
By the
given by the company.
by the
Fourth?
company. Loans
Loan given to
director
So
and
directors
investments
and
by the company.
investments by the company.
Very good. Next?
Deposit.
Deposits. Next?
Cost records.
Very good. Then?
Statutory dues.
Statutory dues. So we have done with how many? 7. Right, everybody? Okay. See, Caro, most of the students skip it for the examination. Reason being, they can't remember. I don't think there is any point here to leave it and go. Okay. If you understand it properly and learn the way it is not difficult. Okay. So why do you want to lose marks here? You can score. If you know the concept behind it, scoring becomes easy. Okay. So please write the next one. 8th clause. Repayment of loan. Okay. This means that if the company has taken loan, the auditor should check that whether the company is repaying back the loan regularly or not. And if it is not repaying, you will write the amount involved and the period for which they are delaying. It is outstanding for how much time? That also will be mentioned. So if you are defaulting in repayment, period of default will also be mentioned. Clearly understandable? So first thing you will see whether are they repaying regularly. If not, amount and period both have to be disclosed. Easy? So under that, write repayment. If the company has defaulted, in a repayment of loans to banks, government.
Ma'am, can you repeat?
Yes. If the company has defaulted in repayment of loans to the banks, government, debenture holders, etc., comma, then the period of default, and the amount shall be reported. Simple, everybody? Okay. Now, let's do the next one. Utilization of funds. Okay, listen to this carefully. Suppose today the company is coming up with a public issue. And you know public issue cannot be for any purpose. You have to very clearly tell for what purpose you're requiring money. And you can use that money only for that purpose. Like for example, suppose company X Limited is going to come up with a new project called as maybe ABC. And they are raising money for the project ABC. Correct? Now, whatever money has been raised from the public can be utilized only for what purpose? For the project ABC. Can they use it for any other purpose? No. Therefore, whenever the company makes a public offer, public issue, okay, it is important for the auditor to check that whether the money so raised has been utilized for the given purpose. If not, what is the default made by them? Or, if you cannot use it for that purpose, you have to give back all the money. Have you delayed or defaulted in this repayment? Logic understandable? So when the company raises money for a particular purpose, the auditor should ensure that the money raised is utilized only for that purpose. If not, you will write about the default, all the details about the default. Logic understandable? Okay, so next one, utilization of funds. Under that, if any funds are raised, by way of IPO, or further public offer, or term loans also you take for particular purpose. You cannot take it for anything. Okay, or term loan, comma, have they been applied to the purpose for which they were raised. Full stop. The auditor has to report. In case of any delays, and defaults. The auditor has to report in case of any delays or default. Simple till here, everybody? Okay, come on, take the next one. Reporting of fraud. Very easy this is. If any fraud has been identified during the year, made by the employees or something, then the auditor has to write about the amount of fraud involved. Okay, that is the only thing. Okay, the nature of fraud, obviously, what type of fraud, obviously, and the amount of fraud involved. Okay, so if during the course he comes across this fraud, which is being conducted by whom, done by whom, employees or the management, then he needs to report about the nature of the fraud, what kind of fraud, and the amount of fraud involved. Easy, everybody? Okay, so write the next one. Reporting about fraud. Whether auditor has noticed any fraud by the company or by the employees of the company, full stop. If yes, the nature and amount of fraud involved shall be reported. If yes, the nature and amount of fraud shall be reported. Caro clauses will come in the same order. Okay, you cannot shift the order. Clause 1 will be fixed asset only. Okay, you cannot shift the clauses. Okay. Okay, everybody? Okay, come on, next one. All of you with me? After reporting of fraud, you have approval of managerial remuneration. Okay. Now you must have all studied as a part of accountancy. Okay, financial statements topic. You must have studied how to calculate managerial remuneration. We do 11% of the net profit. Okay, and for working capital, for working director will be different, whole-time director different, etc., etc. And then we know the total should not cross 11% of the net profit. Correct? That is section number what?
198.
198. That is section 197 and 198 together. Okay. There, which schedule is that covered under? Anybody? Which schedule of the Companies Act talk about managerial remuneration? Section is correct. Schedule. Nobody?
Schedule 5.
Very good. Schedule 5 gives you calculation of what? Managerial remuneration. That is section 197 and 198. Okay. So you have to check whether, as the auditor, that is the managerial remuneration calculated as per schedule 5. And if you have paid any extra amount to those, how are you going to recover it back? What are the steps taken for recovery? Is it possible directors can be paid extra? Yes. So you as the auditor are going to check what are the steps taken by the management to recover this extra payment made to whom? Directors of the company. Any managerial remuneration which is paid in excess of schedule 5. Okay, everyone? Okay, so please write approval of managerial remuneration. And to be on the same line, we are on the 11th clause. Right, everyone? Okay. So let's continue. Whether the limits prescribed, as per section 197 and 198 of the Companies Act 2013, have been complied with. Continue writing. If not, the amount of excess payment made and the steps for recovery shall be reported. Simple, everybody? Logic understandable? Okay, come on. Next clause, clause 12. Nidhi company. Okay, Nidhi company. Very simple this is. Okay, you don't have to, try to get into detail of this. Nidhi company in Caro, we will write two things. There are two important provisions which you have to comply with in Nidhi company. One is you have to maintain a ratio of 1:20 for net owned funds is to deposits. Net owned funds is to deposits should be how much? 1:20. That is one thing. Why? To meet the liabilities. That much should be a liquidity. Okay. Second, you should keep 10% unattached term loans for the purpose of meeting your liability. These two things you have to follow. If it is followed, fair enough. This is what you have to report about Nidhi company. These are two important provisions given in the Nidhi company. which the auditor should check whether they are properly complied or not. And if you have not complied with that, give the reasons. Logic understandable? First write it, and if you find it not understandable, we'll do it once again. Okay? So under that, right? Needy company. In case of a needy company, comma, check whether the following has been complied with. Check whether the following has been complied with. Branch into two parts. First one, net owned funds. Net owned funds to deposits. Net owned funds to deposits is in the ratio of 1:20. On the right side, maintain 10%. Maintain 10%. Unattached term deposits. Maintain 10% unattached term deposits. Bring both the two branches under one head. To meet out the liability. To meet out the liability. So these are minimum requirements by the needy company. Okay, it is given in that respective law. Easy, everyone? Okay, come on, next one. Clause 13. So before that, we'll have a quick recap of all the clauses. Okay, come on, one by one, everybody. Most of you will unmute, okay, unless you have a disturbance behind. Okay, first one.
Fixed assets.
Next.
Inventory.
Inventory.
Third.
Loan given by the company.
Fourth.
Loan given to
Loan given to
directors
directors on investments by the company.
Very good. Fifth.
Deposits.
Sixth.
Cost
Cost
records.
records.
Very good. Seventh.
Statutory dues.
Very good. Eighth.
Repayment of
Utilization of
loan.
Repayment of loans.
Oh, repayment of loans.
Yes. Ninth.
Utilization of funds.
Good. 10th.
Reporting of
fraud.
11th.
Approval of
of
managerial
managerial
remuneration.
12th.
Needy
The
company.
company.
Very good. Okay, so now we have still 3 more clauses to go. 13, 14, sorry, 4 more. 13, 14, 15, and 16. Easy? Unattached term loans are, they should not have, any other kind of security attached to it. Okay, that's called unattached. They should be available. All right, like charge creation. Okay, yes. About that, you'll study later. Okay, what do you mean by unattached? Okay, all right. So let's move on to the next one. That is 14. No, 13th one. Related party transactions. Okay, so now we have two sections, section 177 and section 188 of the Companies Act, which have to be fulfilled by you or complied by you, okay, when it comes to related party transactions. And if not, auditor has to give the reasons for the same. Okay, very easy it is. All right, so please write the next one. Where all transactions with related parties, where all transactions with the related parties are in compliance with section 177. 177 is the audit committee. Okay, you require the approval of the audit committee for RP transactions. Okay, section 177 and 188. 188 is RP, related parties, and 188 of the Companies Act 2013 And the details have been disclosed. And the details have been disclosed appropriately in the financial statements as required by applicable accounting standards. Okay, then come to the next clause. Private placement of preferential issues. Private placements of preferential issue. Very easy this is. Okay, you know that the company can make private placement. Correct. Now what is private placement? Public offer is what? General public, anybody can subscribe. But when the company chooses the group of people to whom they have to give the shares or offer the shares, we call that concept to be what? Private placement. Where whom you are offering are certain people. Like for example, suppose I am offering my shares to Kishore and Uhashri. Private placement. Very clearly defined to whom I am given. That is called as private placement, preferential allotment we call it. Okay. So we have the section 42 of the Companies Act 2013, which talks about what? Preferential allotment, private placement. Okay. So what the auditor will check? Whether the compliance of section 42 has happened for the purpose of private placement. This could be private placement of equity shares, preference shares, debentures. Okay, it could be anything, any security. If not, then you will give the details of the default. Okay. And also, whenever you raise money from private placement, you should utilize it for the same purpose for which you are raising it, like the public issue. For whatever reason you have bought that money into the business, you can use it only for that purpose. If you have bought it for project Z, it can be used only for the project Z. You cannot use it for anything that you require. Logic understandable? Okay, so write the next one. Private placement. Whether the company has followed the limits, and conditions as per section 42.
Ma'am, whether the company has followed
The limits, has followed the limits and conditions Lavanya, mute yourself. Yeah, limits and conditions as per section 42 of the Companies Act 2013. With respect to private placement of shares and debentures. Next point, the auditor shall also check whether the amount raised has been utilized. The amount raised has been utilized towards the purpose for which it was raised. The last two are very, very simple. Okay. So let's take the 15th one, non-cash transactions. Okay, non-cash transactions are transactions wherein we enter with directors and people connected with them. Okay, so what happens? We have this section called Section 192 of the Companies Act 2013, which gives you all the regulations or rules to be followed, okay, for the purpose of such kind of non-cash transactions. Okay, like you need to require prior approval from the general meeting. Okay, one board resolution has to be passed. Some limits are mentioned, all of that. So what you need to remember at this point in time is only that the provisions of Section 192 have to be complied with. And if not, give the reasons for the same. Okay, so only remember the section number here. Section 192 for non-cash transactions. With whom? Directors and people connected with the directors. Okay, so please write the next one, non-cash transaction. Whether the company has entered into any non-cash transactions, entered into any non-cash transactions with directors or persons connected with him, and if yes, whether the provisions of Section 192 of the Companies Act 2013 have been complied with. Okay, come on, last clause, 16th one. Registration under RBI Act. Okay, what this clause tells us, there are certain companies who have to register themselves with RBI, like non-banking financial companies, NBFCs. Okay, so what they should do is they have to register themselves with whom? RBI. Okay, the section is called as Section 45IA, capital I, capital A, 45IA of RBI Act. You have to register yourself under that section. If you are that company which requires compulsory registration with RBI, then auditor should ensure that whether such registration has been obtained by you or not. That is the last clause. Clear, everybody? That means those companies which require to obtain registration from RBI, whether they have obtained the registration or not. And under which section number? 45IA of which Act? RBI Act. You have to obtain the registration. Okay, and if you have not obtained the registration, reporting will be done on the same. Logic understandable, everybody? So come on, last one, registration under RBI Act. Under that, whether the company is required to be registered under Section 45IA, 45-IA, okay, 45 and hyphen in between, IA, of the RBI Act 1934, okay, and if yes, then whether such registration is obtained or not. Easy, everybody? Okay, now understand properly. We did paragraph 3 now, that is contents of Karo. And paragraph 4 talks about wherever in the above 16 clauses, if the answer is coming negative, then you should give the reason for this negative answer. That is, wherever there are qualifications, remarks made by the auditor, then the reason for the qualification should be given where? In the paragraph 4. 3 and 4 talks about reporting. 3 is talking about contents, all the 16 clauses. And 4 is talking about what? Give the reasons for any qualification that you make in the above 16 clauses. Okay, so write the next one, write last one. Paragraph 4. Where in the auditor's report, the answer to any of the questions, referred to in paragraph 3 are unfavorable.
Ma'am, refer to any of the
Questions in paragraph 3. Questions in paragraph 3 are unfavorable or qualified. Unfavorable or qualified. The auditor shall also state the basis. The auditor shall also state the basis for such unfavorable or qualified answers. Easy, everybody? So this is all about Karo 2016.
Ma'am, could you repeat the sentence, please?
Yes.
Last one.
Yeah. Where in the auditor's report, the answer to any of the questions in the paragraph 3 are unfavorable or qualified, the auditor's report shall also state the basis for such unfavorable or qualified answers. Last point, just write one more point. In same paragraph, write the next point. Where the auditor is unable to express any opinion, where the auditor is unable to express any opinion on specified matters, on any specified matter, then he shall also give a reason. Then he shall also give a reason as to why it is not possible, where the auditor is unable to express any opinion on any specified matter, then he shall also give the reason as to why it is not possible for him to give his opinion on the same. To give his opinion on the same. Yes, everybody done? So this is all about Caro 2016. So I believe none of you are going to skip this for the examination. Nobody? Please do not do that. We have taken proper 1.5 hours to cover this. And I believe out of 16 clauses, 10 clauses so you have finished learning in the class only now. The remaining 6, you require a little bit of study at home. That's it. Okay, but trust me, do not leave this for the examination. Okay, many of them just scrap it. Caro, we can't do. You can. If you do slow and steady, you will do it. Okay, so today we took it very slowly, entire 1.5 hours, 16 clauses. So you actually know what is there in the clauses. Okay, now one more reading at your end and the study will be complete. Okay, now to tell you how the questions will appear in the examination, they will not ask you to draft the entire Caro. They will only tell you that if suppose fixed assets have to be reported in the Caro, how will it be reported? So you should mention the clause number and then the details about that. Basically, the questions will appear on fixed assets, inventory, needy company, and fraud. The repeated exam questions are these 4 clauses. Okay, and you should mention the clause number correctly. You'll get points on that. Okay, all the clauses they will never ask you. Usually repeated question is fixed assets and inventory. Okay, but you should do all. Sometimes the question appears on statutory dues also. Okay, but now you have the idea of all of them. So go through everything once again. Trust me, it will be very good in the exam when it comes and 4 marks are yours. Very easy to write them. But write the correct clause number. Okay. Clause number will be small Roman numbers in the brackets. Okay, yes. All right. Now, so we have completed entirely the topic of audit report. Yes. Does anybody have any kind of doubt here?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. So what I will do is I will share one scanned copy with sir and sir will forward it to you. It will be entire Caro 2016. What notes I have given are more than enough for the examination for Caro 16. Okay. But I'll be sending you one more paper across. Have a reading. They have given you the understanding of what we have written section numbers, right? Like section 192. So what is 192? Section 197, 198. What is that? Okay. So they've given you a little bit of description about what these section numbers are. Okay. So what I just send it across to you. Okay. And you have a reading of it. I don't want you to learn it, memorize it. I want you to understand it. If there is a doubt, I'll clarify. Okay. All right. So we'll stop this topic here. We'll do 7-10 later on when I do all the standards remaining ones. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to begin with audit in automated environment. I think that's the word plan, right? Just check.
Ma'am, but you will change the plan, ma'am. Company audit first, you will tell.
Yeah. No, first I'll do audit of automated environment. Next week we'll take entirely company audit. Okay. Yes, Krishna?
Yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am.
Yeah. So we'll do first the automated environment. It will take 3 classes. After that, we'll start with the company audit. Okay, everyone? All right. Okay. So that is it. Is there any doubt anywhere in any of the standards? So are you all comfortable with them? Did you understand properly? Everybody got it right? Okay, good. Okay, so that is it for today. We'll continue tomorrow with the next topic, that is audit of automated environment. Okay, yes. Thank you and have a good day, all of you.